Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. You know, the hockey culture is that you're not supposed to take the shootouts all that seriously, meaning as related to the way you respond to them, the way you get emotional about them in one direction or the other. It's all about how you play in those first 60 minutes and to a much lesser extent how you play in overtime. But the shootouts you're supposed to just shrug off. These guys did not shrug that off last night. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Devils 3, Penguins 2 in the shootout. The Penguins came back. They did. They were down 2-0. And then Sidney Crosby goes off in what appeared to be significant pain in the third period. While he's off, Kevin Hayes ties the game up. Really nice pass by P.O. Joseph, by the way, which meant there was a 2-goal comeback to get that point that forced OT. They get to the shootout, and even though there were a couple of goals on the Pittsburgh side, there was one more on the New Jersey side, with Timo Meier roofing one. And I mean, he just crushed it. Dude's got some epic talent, really does, way more than what he produces. And afterward, nobody was taking it harder than Alex Nedeljkovic, but he also saw, as a lot of his teammates did, the positive in the way that the team played.
Came back from 2 goals down, and we played a pretty good game from start to finish. I thought the first period we were the better team. Just they got a lucky bounce there right at the end. Second period, they made a nice play off a face-off, but we stuck with it. Kept going, clawed our way back. He made some good saves, especially in overtime. So, we'll take the 1 point. It sucks not getting the other one, but we got to be happy with how we played tonight and just move on and get ready for the next one.
Now, again, he was far from the only one who felt that way. I felt that way. I thought they played a really, really solid overall game against an opponent that tends to give them trouble and tends to give them trouble for a reason. The Devils are fast, but more pertinent to this scenario, they're fast and aggressive on the transition. They will send everything and everyone on the transition. That's a difficult challenge for any team to face, especially when you haven't seen them for a while, and they haven't, the Penguins. Now, I'm going to stop right there because I can sense here that you probably stopped with this episode, maybe a minute and a half ago. I'm not listening to this crap. This guy, he's still trying to make something out of this season. He's still talking about when they play well as opposed to when they get the results. And yeah, I am. And I'm not going to apologize for it. I told you guys from Salt Lake City what several players in that room that night told me about how seriously they were taking these next 4 games, the final 4 games before the Four Nations face-off break, and putting absolutely everything they've got into those 4 games. Well, they've now played 2 games since winning in Salt Lake City, beat the Predators, got a point out of the Devils. Next up are games in New York and Philadelphia against the Rangers and the Flyers. If, and I'm highlighting here, if they were to win both of those, they would have taken 7 out of 8 points, and they would have done so, I'm going to presume here, with exactly the level of effort that they promised going into it. Now, there aren't participation trophies to be had here, so I'm not looking to distribute attaboys. The point here, as players stressed in Salt Lake City, is to get back into the race. It wasn't to overtake teams. It was to just get back up there where everything is a little bit more in sight. And then from there, maybe they get healthy, build up some confidence, carry that through the break, and come out firing. Also, and not at all unimportant in this scenario, they might keep Kyle Dubas from trading a Ricard Raquel. their leading goal scorer, who got another one last night in regulation on a hard wraparound and then converted in the shootout as well. My own feel for this situation is that Dubas isn't going to move anybody else significant between now and the deadline. But if this team were to just crumble or quit or fold up, who knows where the thought process goes. He's not blind to this, I'll tell you that. Dubas isn't blind to this, nor is he numb to it. He most definitely understands the challenge ahead, but he also understands that there's a human component to the world of professional sports. And he's very much the type to be getting into something like this without, losing his GM's head. They, the group, all of them, want to make the playoffs. They, as I'm speaking to you, are 7 points out. They believe they can do it if they keep playing the way they are. That's the source of the satisfaction. So when you hear them saying stuff like this, don't think that they're trying to, draw smiley faces onto everything. They're not. This isn't about spinning anything. It's definitely not that on my end. They're putting forth what they feel, and I think this is fair, is the best they've got. Some screwy things happen in this game. I'm not going to go over all of them. And they still ended up coming away with a point with an unlikely 2-goal comeback against a good team. And I don't see why anybody should pout over a shootout. But I do respect that they took it hard because they're trying. I like that. I'm behind that. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's J1Q comes from Casey, who says, DK, considering the cap, the NHL is going up, and the Penguins farm system is seemingly ready to produce some fruit, this mandate to try and retool for Sidney Crosby's final years and Evgeny Malkin's actual final year, there are some very, very interesting free agents who might be available. In particular, Mitch Marner and Mikko Rantanen very well may be available. Is next year the right time to make a move on a free agent of that tier? I'm not going to get started on Marner. I wouldn't want somebody who performs like that in the playoffs if you gave him to me for free. I'm sorry. This isn't my standard Maple Leafs bashing, but he's a classic case of someone who gets so grossly overvalued by the Toronto fan base. I often joke about this by pointing to the long bank of statues they have outside their arena and asking where the Alexei Ponikarovsky statue was, because at the time, I know you're asking who that is, but they'll get it. Whoever's from Toronto that's listening to this is going to get it, because they have players like this come along and they treat them like they're these gods. And then in turn, they get overvalued. Management overpays them. They're up against the cap. And the next thing you know, they can't add other decent players or keep some of their better supporting cast types because they're paying $16 million to Marner, who hides under a table in the playoffs. So, yeah, you were the one who brought up Marner, not me, all right? Nothing personal, Casey. Now, I would take Rantanen all day long. There's not a lot that I wouldn't give up for Rantanen. But let's start getting real here. The Penguins aren't close. I do admire that this group has set for itself a goal of getting back into the playoffs. Good for them. They should do that. They should strive for that. And if they're able to do that, and along the way they're able to work in a Ville Koivunen or a couple other players like that from Wilkes-Barre Scranton, so much the better. But when you're talking about, the real live contenders in the Eastern Conference, you're not going to be talking about Pittsburgh for a while. You're not. I can't see it happening next season. I just can't. I have a hard time seeing it the season after that. So if you're going to bring in a Rantanen as a free agent, and by the way, I'm not entertaining this seriously. I'm just trying to answer the question that's asked. You're going to pay, more than Marner gets because Rantanen's only twice as good as that guy. And Rantanen also has jewelry on his finger, on merit no less. So if you're the Penguins, do you invest that type of capital into that player at that time versus finding other ways to invest all of your resources, all of them, into compiling more prospects, more draft picks? There are teams out there that have cap headaches, if you don't know what I mean, and they would love to get rid of so-and-so or so-and-so. And you say, okay, well, we'll do that, but you got to send us X level draft pick. That's how the Penguins ended up with Kevin Hayes from the Blues. The Blues didn't want to pay Hayes anymore. Penguins said, fine, we'll do it, but send us your second round pick. So by having the cap space rather than going out and spending it, you're utilizing it in that way to build up assets from underneath. That's where they are now. And I think that's where they'll be next year. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these tomorrow, and I will be covering the team in both New York and Philadelphia for those games against the Rangers and Flyers.